rebuild of the favorites. We here for the latest. South side or the north side, not tuned to the greatest. Home team for the home teams. Both sides got our own rings. On the mound or the long ball, but we don't pull the wrong strings. Yeah. It's that time of the year now. Wrigley or Ganty, so the whole league that we hear now. New show with a new mood. Discussions and interviews. Straight rumors that might be. This is Pinwheels and Knife. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Pinwheels and Ivy podcast. I'm Mitchell Kaminski, bringing you White Sox talk every Wednesday in the 12 o'clock hour. We should have Fids and Aldo doing a live stream tonight as well, discussing the Cubs. Much more exciting team this time of year. I got to tell you, given that crazy game against the Diamondbacks coming back, and then last night's comeback against the Dodgers, I mean, this team looks special. The bullpen's got some struggles, but that offense can hang with anyone in the league. And you get some of those wins early, really get guys buying in. I think this Cubs team, they could be in for a fun season. So a lot of fun stuff to talk about with them. So make sure you follow us at Pinwheels Pod for all the latest on that. But we're going to be focused on the White Sox right now. Not quite as fun. The offense is struggling right now. Statistically, they are worse off than they were last year. Last night, a crushing loss as well. They lost 4-2 to the Twins, but they had the bases loaded. Andrew Benintendi looked like he was going to tie the game, ripped the ball into the gap. Byron Buxton laid out and snagged it. Being a White Sox fan, it's like getting punched in the balls and then getting told it's a hand job by the organization because they tell you they're making all these improvements. They never really see it. And, we're still waiting to see this team turn into a contender. A lot of stuff to talk about this week. The biggest development I want to get into right now is the White Sox rotation, which looked like the strongest point of this team the first time through the order. You remember they set a little MLB history. They had their first 4 starters. They didn't give up a run. Shane Smith comes up there. He gets through 4 innings before he gave us up a run. So a pretty historic start to the season. Things were looking good. Second time through the rotation, not quite as good. And now their most effective starter to this point, Martín Perez, looks like he's going to miss the majority of the season. In his last start in Boston, he lasted 3 innings. He only threw 52 pitches. And he looked a little bit off. It was definitely his worst start of the year. The Red Sox were they were having no problem squaring up the ball early in that start. He gets tagged for, I believe it was 4 runs and 5 hits, pair of walks, no strikeouts. Leaves after 52 pitches with forearm soreness. Comes out later. The White Sox put him on 60-day IL. Initially, there were some fears that he might have to have Tommy John surgery. So they saw he was in the 60-day IL, and they're like, okay, well, maybe he could return late June. However, it comes out, MLB Scott Merkin reports he was diagnosed with a left forearm strain. He's continuing to undergo treatment on his left flexor muscle. And then Jesse Rogers said that he likely will not start throwing again until September, adding that for all practical purposes, his year is over. Now, Martín Perez, I really like Martín Perez. That was I thought it was a really good signing this offseason. And while he is not going to be a long-term piece of this rotation, he was probably a 1-year rental, like a Von Nova type guy for the White Sox. This is going to be a big blow for the team this year and moving forward, I think. Obviously, number one, he was signed to be an innings leader and kind of a veteran leader in that clubhouse, right? He won a World Series before. He's been an all-star. He kind of knows what it takes to win. And he was really vocal in spring training, being like, hey, I think this team can compete, and trying to get guys to believe in themselves and buy in. He comes out. He's dealing in his first start against the Twins, follows that up with another good start in Detroit. So he looked really good for a second. So it was kind of more than the bargain for. Not only was he eating innings, he was their most effective pitcher. In fact, through his first 4 starts, he led the White Sox in innings pitched, strikeouts, whip, opponent batting average. And that was all without throwing a pitch over 90 miles an hour with 3.15 ERA. And that 3.15 ERA was mostly because he got tagged for 4 runs against the Red Sox. So really good pitcher that gave you a chance to win every 5th day, help him build some confidence. And he was a guy that was supposed to eat innings. Like, the bullpen's got a lot of question marks. Now, I think the bullpen's starting to round into form. I'm actually a lot more optimistic about the bullpen at this point, which I thought was the biggest weakness of this team heading into the season. And I am about the starting rotation right now. But there's a couple dudes that are starting to emerge that we're going to get into that in a second, I think can be trusted. But the problem is now, without Perez, especially the innings leading aspect, this rotation doesn't have any guys that can eat innings. It's a very young rotation. The average age of this rotation with Martín Perez in it is just 27 years old. Now, Davis Martin's the oldest guy in that rotation. He's also 27. But, Davis Martin hasn't been a starter for a full season, and I don't think ever. So you don't know what that workload is going to be. Shane Smith, as good as he has been, it's very evident once he gets past the 5th inning, he's starting to get tired. And we've seen it in almost every start. He starts missing high with his fastball, and it's something he's talked about too. They talked about on the broadcast. He gets fatigued very quickly. He's not a guy you can trust to go deep into the games at this point in his career. Jonathan Cannon, I mean, he's not even averaging 5 innings a start. Now, I will give Cannon a lot of credit. I don't think he's a major league starter, but he's done some things for this team that I think were very selfless. He had a start earlier this year, I believe it was in Detroit, did not have his best stuff. Getting knocked around the ballpark, giving up a lot of runs, but they needed him to eat some innings. And so he kept going out there, despite the fact that all he had to lose was make his numbers look worse. But the bullpen needed a rest. He got him through 6 innings. Last start, I thought he did not have his best stuff. He probably should have been pulled a lot earlier if the White Sox wanted a chance to win that game. Yeah, he still gutted it through 6 innings. And honestly, he kept the game within reach. He only gave up 4 runs. I thought it could have been a lot worse. He gives up way too much traffic on the base pass. I don't think he's a major league starter long term, but at least that's another instance where they need him to eat innings. They get to the 6th inning. But overall, and we talked about Burke's struggles last week, there's a lot of guys in this rotation that just simply, you don't trust them to go deep into games. And if you start taxing your bullpen this early in the season, especially when you're a little bit devoid of talent in that department, that's going to come back to bite you in the ass later in the year. If you're getting tired in April, when you get to the dog days, July and August, you're going to have to pay that tax eventually. So if things look bad now, it could get even worse unless these guys can start eating some innings. And I don't know who you bring in. You got to bring in some sort of veteran. Tristan McKenzie was just DFA'd. I think that's exactly the type of guy the White Sox should pick up because there's a lot of upside there. You take a flyer, cheap guy, division rival, just kind of cast him up. He's shown he can be good in the past, but I don't think he solves your innings problem because he's coming off an injury too. So how you don't know what you're going to get out of him. Mike Clevenger was just DFA'd. They brought him back. Surprise, surprise. Nobody else wanted him. And I know some people are, initially the thought was like, well, maybe they kept him around so he can fill in that spot in the rotation. But the problem with that is, say, even if you wanted to go with the Clevenger route, he was training all offseason to be a reliever. They told him he's going to be a reliever. He hasn't built up that starter workload. He's also got the injury issues. So it's going to take him a while to get things built back up. So I don't think he could be the innings eating guy either. Bringing him back, by the way, retaining, there's no reason for it. I hear a lot on like X right now, Twitter, whatever the hell you want to call it, that he's got some sort of blackmail against Jared. That's the only reason they keep bringing him back. And obviously, I thought that was like, so I was calling BS initially. But you keep saying him, bring him back time after time, inexplicably. Like, there's no reason for him to be on this team. Like, what's the purpose he served? He showed he can't be an effective reliever. You're going to have to build him back up as a starter. If they wanted him to be a starter, you'd think they would call him up already. So unless they're trying to do that in Charlotte, I don't know. But there's no reason for him to be on this team right now. So I am very concerned about the state of the starting rotation. Now, I think there is some talent there. I think Davis Martin's a very good starter. And I think as the season goes along, you're going to see these guys get a little bit better. Hopefully. But right now, you got guys that are struggling to even get into the 6th inning. And that's across the board throughout your rotation. So losing Martín Perez, that's a big blow. I think that hurts in more ways than one. So that's a little concerning. Let's get to the offense right now. And, I always try and put on the rose-colored glasses. I try and stay positive. And I don't think, again, we mentioned, statistically, the offense right now is worse than what they were last year. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I know the numbers show it right now, but I think injuries have played a factor. And I think they're getting more scoring opportunities. They're just not converting them. The biggest culprits right now, one, Andrew Vaughn, one of the worst qualified hitters in baseball right now. And I've been a big Andrew Vaughn defender. But at some point, and it's not that he doesn't get clutch hits at times. He got a big hit off Liam Hendricks at Fenway. You've seen him like Yankee Stadium a couple years ago. He had that home run against Roldis Chapman. So he'll come up in big moments from time to time. But I don't get enough of Andrew Vaughn. And he posts decent numbers. Like you get 20 home runs, 80 RBIs from a season, which I'll take for my first baseman. But what I don't get enough from him is like middle of the game when they got guys on runners in scoring position with 2 outs. Vaughn's up a lot of the time. And how many times do you just see him dribble some ground ball into second base or hit into an inning-ending double play? There's not enough time when you need a hit or you need some runs midway through the game. Vaughn does not deliver. Like at some point, you got to step up. And I blame a lot of the offensive struggles right now on him because he and Robert are supposed to be the run producers, and he's not. He picks and chooses his spot, but it's not nearly consistent enough. It's not. So that's, a lot of people calling for Tim Elko right now. He's 26 years old already. At some point, yeah, I think you got to give him a shot because Juan's not cutting it. Do you really think he's going to be part of this team 2-3 years from now? the way he's been playing. I think he's a solid player, and I've been defending him a long time, but it's getting harder and harder each week. We see him. Like, at some point, I can't make excuses for you. You know, first it was you're playing out of position, and I thought that was valid. And then, you know, the legs are getting tired playing the outfield because he's never done that before, which is valid. But you've had 2 full years now at first base. Right? Actually, I think more than that. Where's your excuse right now? Or maybe the lack of line of protection, fine. But there's been times we got runners on base. He comes up so often with runners on base, and we don't get anything out of it. Because the White Sox are getting base runners. They're always threatening, and like they stay in a lot of these games. And I still stand by what I said last time. Despite the record, they're playing competitive baseball. The team's much more digestible to watch. They're in a lot of these games, but they don't capitalize on opportunities enough. And that's why I think you get these big, like when they do win, like you get these big, like scoring monsoons almost where they blow up for like, you know, they blow their load and it's like 10 runs a game. You're like, whoa, where did that come from? Because they start like cashing because they get a lot of base runners and they start driving them in. But there's too many droughts. And he's one of the main culprits. Luis Robert, another one. He's been hitting the ball hard. He's starting to pull the ball a little bit more, which I think they want to see. Pull it in the air. They're strong dudes, especially at the Chicago, in a hitter's-friendly ballpark like that. It's going to help with the home runs. But he's another guy, too. You get runners on base. Him or Vaughn come up. These are the guys we're expecting to deliver. Those are the two biggest offensive culprits. Number 3, Miguel Vargas. Part of me is questioning Chris Getz's talent evaluation here. I know Vargas, the big thing was he bulked up over this offseason. He added 20 pounds of muscle. You know, it was a new change of scenery last year. We cut him a pass, but it's still looking rough. Man, it's still looking really rough. And you traded Michael Kopech for him? I mean, part of me wants to know, did Chris Getz bring up Miguel Vargas? Or the Dodgers bring them up when they were like, because he was the centerpiece of that trade. So was that the guy that Chris Getz identified and was like, yeah, this is the guy we want? Or did the Dodgers bring him up first? I would love to be a fly on the wall for those negotiations because we're looking at a couple trades now. It looks like the White Sox got absolutely fleeced. Fetty trade sucked. That Dylan Cease trade, looking worse and worse every day. Now, hopefully Thorpe can come back and be an effective starter. But you traded an ace for Thorpe. And Thorpe, I think, ceiling realistically, he's a number 3 starter in this league. I think he could be an effective pitcher. We'll see how he comes back from Tommy John surgery. A lot of the times now, pitchers are better when they come back from Tommy John surgery. Sometimes they throw harder. He's got decent stuff. So I think, we'll see how he does there. But, Jairo Iriarte, he was 19, or next, not Iriarte, I'm sorry. Samuel Zavala, who was 19-year-old outfielder they picked up at the time in that trade. He's now 21. And, he was kind of the X factor of that trade for me. He's like, they need some bats. He's got some potential, but he's pretty young. You look at his minor league numbers right now. He's still struggling. He's still really struggling. So that trade looks like it stung. You start to question Chris Getz's talent evaluation. You're whipping on a lot of trades here. We're trading a lot of assets. That's fine. We're going to do a rebuild. But at some point, you got to start hitting on some of these trades. And we're not. The success rate right now does not look very good. So that's a bit frustrating. But my big 3, right? Vaughn, Vargas, and Robert, get your shit together. This is the reason this team is struggling, right? Those are the big 3 guys that, like, they need to step up. They need to step up. It's still early in the year. It's cold out. Guys struggle in April. This is a long season. I don't want to press the panic button yet because for me, a successful season, unfortunately, is like 60 wins. And that is still within reach. So we'll give it a little time. We'll give it a little patience. Baseball is a tough game. It is. So we're going to be patient a little bit. But like those are the big 3 right now. That's why the offense, in my opinion, is struggling as much as it is. Let's get in the bullpen really quick. Mike Vasil, I want to give him a shout out. Last night, Davis Martin, again, can only go 5 innings. And not all of that was his fault. The defense kind of let him down. That got the pitch count up pretty high. Because I don't think he was throwing the ball that bad. But again, they need someone to eat innings. They're coming off a long 4-game series in Boston. It was an early day game, and they got to travel to Minnesota, play that game. So, not an easy position. And Vasil, he gave up the bomb late. He gave up the 2 runs, but he still ate 3 innings. And all things considered, you go 3 innings as a reliever. You only give up those 2 runs in 1 inning because it was a home run. I give him a lot of credit. I think he's been one of their better relievers this year. Cam Boozer's another guy I really like out of the bullpen. But they don't have, early on, you can tell Will Venable's kind of like testing guys in different spots because he doesn't really know what roles each guy should fill yet. It's kind of unclear. So you can see he's kind of playing with things like Jordan Leisure. He's a guy they've toyed with in the high leverage roles. We did a breakdown of his outing against the Red Sox last time. His last outing against the Red Sox at Fenway too, pretty similar situation. And I wanted to see if he'd go back because he had a full count, if he's going to go back to that slider again. And he went fastball there. It got fouled off, and then he went back to the slider. Was able to get the out once again. For whatever reason, Red Sox hitters, they're struggling to pick up his slider. But another good outing from Leisure in a high leverage situation. That's promising to see. But the one guy I do think, and it's a very small sample size, but the guy that has been exciting to me that I think could have a big role on this team moving forward and be a big help is Steven Wilson. Now, you might remember Chris Getz, talking about bad trades. He was part of that Dylan Cease trade. And at that time, Wilson was seen like they needed someone in the bullpen. He was kind of going to be their high leverage guy. He was coming off his third MLB season. He has shown that Wilson has shown on a good team with San Diego too, by the way. He was pitching some big innings. He's pitched in the postseason before, but he has shown he can be an effective MLB reliever. Got a career 3.41 ERA. That's going to play. And in 2023, he had a 3.91 ERA, which, for a reliever, it's a bit high, but he had 26% strikeout rate. They'll take that. Sub 4 ERA, especially for the White Sox state of things, you will take that. 2024 last year, things did not go well. And I'm not going to lie, it was a rough look. He gets DFA'd. His walk rate jumped from 12% to 16%. And his strikeout rate, we mentioned 26% was the year before, which is really good. That dropped all the way to 20. ERA ballooned up to 5.71, and then he got DFA'd in February. That move showed, I think, Chris Getz was not shy about, he's not sentimental about any of his trades by doing that move, so I did respect Getz a little bit in that sense. But with Wilson, so they bring him back, he clears waivers, he's in AAA Charlotte. He gets off to a really good start in AAA Charlotte. First 5 innings, he's got 10 strikeouts, just 1 walk. So they give him another shot in the bullpen. And some things I've noticed, just in his early small sample size. He had 5.1 innings in Charlotte, 10 to 1 strikeout ratio, which was good. So he needed to cut down on the walks. So he replaces, we'll go through his outings here. Plays Davis Martin against the Athletics. They're trailing 4-0. Wilson strikes out the first batter he faces, Max Muncy, on 3 pitches, 3 consecutive sweepers. Then he wins an 8-pitch battle. Gets out of the inning. 3 days later, he's back in Fenway Park. White Sox up 5-4. Much higher leverage situation here. He's handed the ball with 2 outs in the 7th inning. Tying runs on first base. He got ahead 0-2 in the count, pair of sliders. And then he gets Weiler Abreu to chase that one. Ground a soft ground ball into the dirt. Returns them out of the 8th inning. Fans another guy. Gets out of it. He's got a spotless 0 ERA. And a couple big spots there. One with 4-0, trying to keep the lead there. Keep the game within reach. Another one protecting the lead. Look good. Now, here's why I think Wilson might stick this time. He's shown he's going to be an effective reliever before. That's number 1. Number 2, strikeout stuff, it looks like it's improving. I think he has found something as far as the strikeouts go. This is a guy that he needs a lot of swing. He needs a lot of whiffs. And he's throwing the changeup. So the biggest thing I noticed right now is changeup. He's throwing it a little bit more. Last year, he only used it 8% of the time. Right now, he's using that a lot more than 8%. And it's also, he's throwing it a little bit harder. Last year, it averaged around 81 miles an hour. Now he's throwing it around 85 miles an hour. Opponents in that small sample size, again, it's only 2 innings, but they're whiffing at a near 35% clip. That's pretty good. So they're not seeing the ball as well as they were last year off of Wilson. And the other thing is, too, and there's a little bit of Aaron Bummer with Steven Wilson, I think, last year. Now, I think Aaron Bummer is a lot more talented. But even just last year, and he wasn't good last year, but the numbers weren't as bad as it should have been. He ran into a lot of bad luck. He had a pretty bad defense behind him, but opponents had a hard time squaring him up. The average exit velocity against Steven Wilson was 86.6 miles an hour last year. That ranked amongst the best in baseball. And his expected ERA was a little bit lower. It was at 5.35. His actual ERA was 5.71. So he did run into bad luck. He wasn't good by any means, but bad defense behind him last year. Opponents weren't hitting the ball very hard. A lot of soft contact. He just kind of found holes and whatnot. And so now he's cutting down on the walks a little bit. Hopefully that stakes. The stuff looks a little bit better. I think he's found something with his changeup, and he's had the body of work before. So when you're talking about guys that you want to trust late in innings, I think Steven Wilson, despite that abysmal year last year, he can be that guy. Time will tell if I am right or not, but Yeah, we got Southside Deech in the chat. Thanks for joining us, Deech. Vassal Boozer and Steven Wilson should be getting all the high leverage reps. I agree. I would sprinkle a little bit Jordan Leisure in there as well. I don't mind him getting from time to time a look or two. Leisure right now, the problem is he's just a bit too inconsistent. I think Vassal, Boozer, and Wilson, those are the guys you trust the most right now. And Boozer, he's also shown in Boston that he can be an effective reliever right now as well. If you haven't watched that Netflix documentary, The Clubhouse, they have a really good episode on Cam Boozer. And I was already a fan of Cam Boozer because he used to pitch for the Chicago Dogs, so I used to work for. But watching that, I mean, you can't help. One, it shows why baseball, in my opinion, is like the greatest game in the world. You just get some of the stories like that. But he's a very easy guy to root for, and it's a good lesson in perseverance. So watch that documentary if you get the chance on Netflix, The Clubhouse. Very good, by the way, too. Jared Duran was a guy who you already knew he was a stud. He's an all-star last year, but I've been a big Jared Duran fan now after watching that. He's very vocal about some of the mental health struggles he's had. And that's why you feel bad. You see a lot of these guys where, Jacob Maya, for example, he's kind of the punching bag on White Sox Twitter right now, but you forget these guys are human, and they hear a lot of this noise. They try and cancel it out, but they hear a lot of it. They're trying. And baseball, again, it's one of the toughest games in the world to play. It's a long grind throughout the year. It's such a mental game as well. And like the way these pitchers are throwing stuff right now, like it just goes to show you fail 3 out of 10 times at the plate and you're going to be a Hall of Famer. That's how hard this game is. So as I've gotten a little bit older, I'm trying to ease up on ripping a lot of these guys because it is tough. It is. I almost feel bad for Jacob Maya right now. The guy can't catch a break. He can't hit. He got an RBI yesterday, and it was on a sac fly, and the dugout looked way too excited for him. And it was like, oh, man, this is tough. Just for a sac fly, because he finally drove in an RBI, and he did something productive. But if he was a qualified hitter right now, I think he's 10 at bats away. He's got a 0.91 batting average. He will probably be one of the worst qualified hitters in baseball right now. The problem is he's really the only true shortstop this team has. Like it or not, I would rather have him at shortstop than Lenyn Sosa defensively. But now you got Chase Mydroff on the IL too, which really hurt because Mydroff looked pretty good early on. So it's tough, especially when the offense is struggling. Can you really afford to be giving away a bunch of free outs with Amaya in the lineup? I don't know, man. So that's a tough situation right there. It was too bad though. Chase Mydroff, man, that guy, he got off to a really good start. I've been really impressed with Caro as well. It's really cool seeing him in his debut. He was able to get on base, and then a couple days later got his first hit. A couple mishaps behind the plate. He plunked the guy trying to throw the guy out at first base, running to first base last night. That's going to happen. But I'm glad Caro's getting a lot of reps behind the plate. I think they got a really good catcher combination. It's a really good catching situation right now because Dice, to me, while you'd rather see, Teal and Caro getting starts with this young pitching staff, it's nice to have a veteran back there to handle that pitching staff. So I like what Dice has brought to the table. He's worked some good at bats. He's been getting on base a decent amount. So I almost don't mind having those two. And when you bring Teal up, you guess you alternate him with DH. You kind of have the rotation there. But I'm fine with Tice getting some reps. DJ asks here, when do you think Colson gets the call? I think it's sink or swim time unless he is still hurt. I was a little concerned about Colson initially. I am not going to rush Colson. I think there's no reason to rush Colson right now, with the back issues especially. And after that rough start to the season, he didn't look anywhere near Major League ready. He is starting to heat up, though. I heard the Sox sent their hitting czar down to Charlotte. He's kind of spent a week with Colson. After that talk, I believe it was Ryan Fuller, he's starting to improve a little bit. So baby steps, but that's good to see. My guess is Colson gets the call. I will go, for no particular reason, just pulling the date up, July 14th, middle of July. That's when he's going to get the call. I think they give him a little bit of time to kind of refine his swing, build up that confidence, and show at least a month of consistent hitting. He's been very inconsistent. Like last year, there's a lot of things to like. He had 18 homers. He showed some pop. But the 164 strikeouts in AAA, that's a problem. That's a problem. So you got to clean that up a little bit. And defensively, too, I know they were talking about in spring training, they thought he was a good athlete and he could get to a lot of balls other guys couldn't. And part of his basketball background, he's got that. He's really athletic and he's got that wide wingspan. So that's going to allow him to get some, line drives that maybe other guys can't get. His range is very good. But there's a lot of routine plays that like he would miss. So they wanted him to clean that up a little bit as well. So all things considered, and given that they do have Drop, who can play second base, Lenyn Sosa, he's hitting about 270 right now. He's actually having a quietly pretty solid season. Brooks Baldwin also has been very productive. I'm a big Brooks Baldwin fan, by the way. You know, the numbers aren't like terribly impressive. He's sitting around like 250, but the guy's a gamer, man. He can play multiple different positions. And I don't think he's a great outfielder, but like he busts his ass on the base pass. He came up with that clutch walk-off hit. He's always seemed to get on base. He's like he's like a spark plug type guy. Big Brooks Baldwin fan. But him and Sosa, I think, can hold down that for the time being. And you know, Sosa's out of options too. So they don't want to like put him on waivers. So all of that, why I think that's why they're going to be patient with Colson. And I don't think he gets the call till July because they want him to succeed. They have a lot invested in Colson Montgomery. You can't be whiffing on first round draft picks when you're bad, especially when you're getting top 10 picks. So I think they're going to do everything they can to make sure he succeeds. And as much as I'd love to see him up here playing, I'm fine if they wait. And that's why Tim Elko too, like, you know, a lot of people like, bring him up. And I'd like to see him up too. I think, you know, 26 years old, like that's more of the guy, like you give him a look, but you know, they wanted to wait another month just to, you know, it's fine with me. Put him in the best position possible to succeed. Because that's the other thing right now too. You rush Elko up right now. You rush Colson Montgomery up right now. Where's their lineup protection? You got all these guys injured right now with, like, you know, Slater's hurt, you know, Talkman's hurt. And, you know, they're obviously not like all-star caliber players, but that helps a lot. It's a lot better having them out there in the lineup. The lineup looks certainly a lot better. You want to give these guys as much lineup protection as you can to kind of cushion that blow when they're up in the major leagues. That's all I got for you this week. Thank you so much for listening. I'm hoping they got the Athletics coming up. You know, Andrew Benintendi, by the way, before we let this go, I do want to pull this up. They got 2 more games against the Twins right now. Twins, second worst team in baseball behind the White Sox. If you want some free money, saw this interesting little stat. Let me pull it up here. Hold on one second. Andrew Benintendi, and this is from David Lorilla on Twitter, but Andrew Benintendi slashing 343, 387, 591 with 9 home runs and 150 plate appearances at Target Field. And he almost tied the game last night. So bet on the Benintendi, either homer props or overhit props. He tends to crush the Twins. He's been the best hitter on the team right now. I do think the White Sox could probably get something for him at the deadline if they wanted to. He's been excellent. But maybe they don't want to trade him just because you want that extra lineup protection. So we shall see. Got to take a deep breath. Hopefully the White Sox can rally. It was nice that they got the Easter win, though. That was kind of a crazy day. You know, down here in Missouri, we had a tornado come down through Columbia. So I was watching the end of the White Sox game. Easter miracle, Andrew Vaughn, clutch home run off Liam Hendricks. Good to see Liam back on the mound, too. You know, pretty soon, as soon as that game ended, I got called into work because they're like, oh, there's storms coming. So I had to drive our meteorologist around on the storm tracker. Things are getting a little dicey out there. Old wheelman Kaminski, we were hydroplaning all over the place. You know, we got winds whipping this car around. It was a struggle to stay on the road, especially, you know, you could hardly see with the visibility with all the rain kind of coming sideways. And when you were next to a semi, it would kind of mess up the air. So that got a little dicey. But long story short, it was nice to see the White Sox win there. So it was an eventful Sunday. Hopefully the White Sox can pick up a few more. You know, I just want them 10 wins a month. That'll get them to around 60 wins. That's what I'm hoping for. So we shall see. Again, Pinwheels and Ivy, should we be returning tonight? Follow us at Pinwheels Pod. They should post the details on there. I never would know with them. You know, it's very, you know, Fids is a big time star out in Vegas. He's always going to these celebrity banquets and stuff. So you never know when the hell they're going to do a show. That's why you stick with the Southsiders. We're consistent. Every Wednesday, we're the blue collar podcast of this Pinwheels and Ivy show here. Every Wednesday, noon, 12:30, whatever it is. We're out here grinding. You know, the Cub fans of the show, and they just pick and choose every other week. You're lucky to get like 2. So, but lucky enough, you're going to have a show tonight. All right, I've rambled long enough. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your week.